So welcome everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you. I am your host. I am Rick Smith. I'm with Johns Hopkins University. And today we're going to take a look at our special conference, which is Strategies for Sustainable Human Development. This is a sneak peek, so only available here will be a quick overview of what we're talking about. I'm joined with several colleagues, but before we get to some of the meat of that, I want to give you a little bit of an overview. Here I'm in Washington, D.C. live, in our nation's capital, for those of you in the U.S. I serve as a professor here. I also lead something called the Human Capital Development Lab here at Hopkins. And when you come to the conference, be happy to share more about what we're doing here as well. But let's get into what is this special conference and what are we doing? There's a lot of great things that we're excited to share with you. Certainly some of the topics and speakers. I want to share a bit about the location and the venue. We'll be hosted by Johns Hopkins University. In this picture, you will see a building with a little red star. If you come to the conference, that's where you will be. And so proximity to a number of great things, which I'll share. A smaller conference, so a special conference, if you haven't been to one, is a bit more targeted. It's an opportunity to really connect with a number of colleagues and dig deep into the areas of interest for you. We hope to really shape the research agenda. And by the way, no obligation, but we do need to save our planet. We'll get to that. On behalf of the conference chairs, both myself and everyone else, Jonathan Doe, DK, and Helly Wong are all excited about this. And we've been putting our heads together around how do we really create something powerful for you. And here I'll have some pictures as a glimpse of the venue where we'll be. That's the inside of our new facility, which just opened a few months ago here in DC. Now, coming to Washington, now that's one of the things I know many people just think about as we get started is like, okay, well, how difficult is it to get there? All those things. Well, around DC, we have 3 major airports, easy access from each of those. If you happen to be on the East Coast, the train is a great way to go. And we're walking distance to Union Station right downtown. All around us are lots of different hotels for any type of budget, and there's great places to see as you go as well. So makes it a little bit easy. While you're here, you'll want to spend a little bit more time because while the conference is great, the venue and there's lots to see all around, and so you'll see a picture here of the proximity of the National Mall from the U.S. Capitol building to the Washington Monument. Johns Hopkins, our host, is right there in the middle. And walking distance to the Capitol, the Washington Monument, we're right across the street from the National Archives. So if you do have any confidential documents that belong to the U.S., it's a great time to turn those in. Don't keep them in your garage, right? So encourage that. Lots of things around in terms of not only sights to see, but super restaurants and a great venue. And spring is a lovely time, to be here. But enough about that. A sneak peek on bringing some topics to life as we get into this. And so I'm pleased that we've got some of our leading academics in the areas of our theme joining us. So Pat will be joining us and having a panel session that with industry folks that'll share their perspective on some of the things going on. Anita is going to join us and share her thoughts on the intersection of sustainability and human capital. And we're pleased to announce that Pedro from the United Nations is actually going to come and join us. He's a director of human development reporting is the author of a number of different perspectives on global human development, and is super excited to join us for the conference. So about our theme, and I want to emphasize that we've been thinking about this for some time, and we said, really we're at the midpoint of the UN Sustainable Development Goals in the target. We're in the spring, we'll be at the 5-year anniversary when the Business Roundtable came up with the whole ESG, concept and commitment. World leaders have been, just as of yesterday and today, agreeing at COP28. There's a lot of society trends, and so our theme around strategies for sustainable human development, we thought would really, come to life. Now, if that's not maybe a call to action, I guess maybe we say, well, how are we doing on all these things? Does it really deserve the attention? And I have to say, as we looked at things and we looked at the Sustainable Development Goals, for example, the progress for a halfway point, not exactly on target. And so limited to no progress is the common answer, reversal in some areas, and we're not getting much traction. And then if you just look at the headlines of today, we see a variety of different things. We see conflicts between nations. We see societal issues that business leaders need to respond to, and even the controversies facing us in society, questions around governance, and I think there's some room for improvement. Let's just say. So now is a time to act. Now is a time to act. We feel that the private sector, coupled with our academic orientation, could be really a superpower, a superpower. And so, as I was thinking about this and talking to my colleagues, and someone remarked, I thought you were just a professor. And my colleague responded, no, I am here to save the planet. I'm going to the special conference. And so there we are. So I hope that you'll join us and become a superhero as we look at the future. We've got a few great tracks, and we're going to bring these to life, contributing to society health and well-being, managing firm human capital sustainably, and enabling education institutions with equitable opportunity. And I'm really pleased to have, and I'll introduce now our track chairs who've joined us to share their thoughts in a discussion. So I'll just mention a couple of things. Tim comes to us from BYU. His research is around strategy, human capital, and really understanding some of the determinants of individual productivity and skill in organizations, and taking not only a micro but also a macro view of how we think about those things. Jiao from Minnesota, both in the area of corporate social responsibility, collective governance, how we think about those things, and why firms engage in CSR and what's the impact on them. And then Colleen, my colleague here at Johns Hopkins, whose research really focuses around collaborative work, how work is accomplished in times of uncertainty, how we think about resilience, and those collective arrangements and working with each other, and particularly around gender equality is something that she's been focused on in making a real impact. So it's a pleasure to be joined by these scholars, and I'll stop sharing here so we can go to a bit of a panel discussion. All right, I'm seeing nodding heads ready to go with my fellow panelists here. So why don't we get started, and we'll kind of start in the track order here and start with you, Tim. Maybe you could just share with us why is this topic important for the future of as we think about human development.
Yeah, thank you, Rick, and welcome everybody. I'm very excited to have you join us. So I'm excited to be a track chair in this conference because I think that the tracks are very, very different, but very appropriate for what's going on in the world. I love the focus on the UN Sustainable Development Goals and this idea around thinking about our ability as strategy scholars and management scholars more broadly to benefit the world. So one of these ways that we can have a significant impact is through the health of individuals. And this includes understanding how healthcare can be provided more effectively and efficiently and safely. We have a lot of evidence suggesting that there are problems in the United States and in many countries of the world. If you look at the Sustainable Development Goals, there's a lot of challenges there. The measures suggest that we're not even on track for many of these kind of basic health areas. But I think even more fundamentally, there's a lot of opportunity for academics and for businesses to engage to help in these efforts. So Lamar Piercy and Larkin and I did some work on this previously, showing huge effects from improving wealth or health for sick employees and organizations. And this seems like very low-hanging fruit, where if organizations get involved with things like wellness programs or get involved in a big way to try to help with mental health and other ways, that as human capital scholars, this is a big dimension that we've potentially not looked at as significantly as we should. So Gary Becker's original conceptualization included health, but in the subsequent years, we've largely just dropped it, and it's been highly under-researched. So I'm excited to bring this to the fore at kind of an important time.
Great, great. Thanks, Tim. Jiao, let's go to you. Why is this, important from your perspective and the track that you're leading?
Thank you, Rick, and thanks, Tim, and good morning, everyone. Together with Wesley Koo, I'm very delighted to be part of the second track, which is about managing human capital sustainably. And obviously, this is a topic that Strategy Scholar has spent a lot of time thinking about, and obviously, for many of the headlines that Rick had shared with us, right? Many of those are about how do you manage, human, how do you manage teams? So, I think it's just by definition, right? It's about how to, if you're doing work interested in how do we develop human capital, how business leaders should think about that, or other organizations should think about that, right? What is the any kind of labor movement? So what kind of incentive structures, right, we're setting in place. So all of those are very much welcomes. And I'm excited to be part of the team in building the Avengers DC version.
Great, great. Thanks, Jiao. And Colleen, how do you think about this conference and the areas that you're looking at with your track?
Good morning, everyone. It's great to see you. Thank you for joining us. In our track, and this is I'm co-chairing this with Chris Ryder, who couldn't be here today. Unfortunately, he's traveling. But we're really excited about delving into this area of equity in education. I think just basically from a policy standpoint, we know that returns to investment in education are massive. And even just as I scrolled the UN targets for what our outcomes should be in the areas of equity in education, these are things that even in the US we're really falling really behind on. And so again, we think that this is just such a tremendous opportunity for scholars in our area to engage more directly in this topic. And particularly at this moment of time where even in higher education, where at many of our institutions, we have a lot of mechanisms to improve access to higher education, and these are being challenged in our current legal and regulatory environments. So not only is this is a global issue, but even here in the United States, we're really struggling with education and access to opportunity, in particular at this key moment in time.
Indeed, indeed. Well, thank you, Colleen. And maybe we'll just pick right up with you on the next, question. Just as you were talking, as a successful researcher, what has been your approach, to creating insights in your field and your area?
This is a really tough question, but I think at a high level, what I'm trying to do more of, and I'm not, and I haven't, and I think there's folks in the field who do this much better than I do, and historically I haven't done a great job of this. But what I'm trying to do more and more of is engage with topics and questions that have really important implications for policy and practice. And through that, no matter what empirically we find in our data, it's still useful and relevant, and we can still push the needle forward on important issues. And so that's something that's at a high level it's been top of mind for me as in this sort of current phase of my career.
That's great. That's great. I sense that being humble is also important, based on your answer. Jiao, what about for you? What's been your approach to creating insights in your areas?
Yeah, good question. I mean, definitely echo with what Colleen was saying. I think the other part is also, for me, it's about trying to apply concepts from, areas of strategy, right? So transaction cost economics, corporate strategy, portfolio, right? So all of those that have implications for the SDG goals that we care about, right? So that's one approach. And the other is just to think about, phenomena, right? Phenomena that hasn't been explored. If we look at the SDG goals, we tend to congregate on a couple of goals just because, those are more established, have a kind of a set of scholars who's already working on it. But there's many other topics that I would argue are fundamentally organizational problems and strategy problems. So that's, being oftentimes how I go and look for those phenomena, right? And I see that we have a couple of attendees who's also, doing great work, like Carlos, who's doing great work in thinking about, right, and who's also an organizer for the first panel and thinking about emerging market, right? And those are, often good places, and at least for me as well, to think about emerging markets and how those topics can be thought about by strategy approaches.
Okay, and Tim, personal approach for creating insights, thoughts.
Yeah, so my approach previously has largely been to focus on individual productivity, and particularly how wellness programs end up influencing individual productivity in organizations. And so I think that we have a lot of evidence on like absenteeism and on insurance costs and things like this in terms of how poor health ends up influencing the firm's bottom line, but we have significantly less on the kind of value creation opportunities from increased productivity and increased ability just to bring yourself to work and to be healthy and to feel well and to be productive. And so a lot of my focus previously with Lamar Pierce and Ian Larkin has been more on the productivity side. More recently, I've been focusing on thinking about multiple goals in organizations, competing goals like social and financial goals. And I think that this is a common challenge for not just hybrid organizations, but also many healthcare organizations, and just increasingly for any organization that's trying to pursue social value in addition to financial value. And so I've been doing some work here with emergency medical service providers, looking at how they trade off between these competing goals on calls. I will say, so Carlos, who was mentioned, Carlos Inoue, who is at University of Illinois, who is helping me on this track, working on this together. He's doing some really great work in healthcare, and we have many scholars that are doing this type of work too, looking at the healthcare industry and how it can work more effectively, looking at doctor performance and nurses and all sorts of different clinicians and organizational structures. So he's got some very nice work, for instance, on in Brazil, looking at C-sections and what determines kind of how C-sections are used and things like this. And so I think that for our vision for the track is really to create a broad tent, and anybody that's interested broadly in wellness and the healthcare industry and healthcare innovation, like all of these spaces, pharmaceuticals, we want to create a big tent where people can come together and talk about these issues.
Great, great. Well, you know, and kind of picking up on that, I'll start maybe with you, Jiao, on you know, goals for your track. Are there some key trends? What are the things that you really hope to have as outcomes, so that if people are thinking about submissions and ideas, you know, what are your thoughts, you know, for your track, Jiao?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there's three things that you know, we see as topics that are really kind of you know, kind of hot topics, right? But also, you know, really interesting. There has you know, some work on it or a lot of work on it, but you know, we still kind of desperately need answers for those. One is the idea of you know, we know for a while that employees are no longer just motivated by basic benefits and some salaries, right? And you know, just as Tim was mentioning, there's many other dimensions of things that we traditionally don't look at, but they really care about, right? Such as healthcare, such as purpose, right? Such as, you know, engagement, broader engagement, the firm's role in society. So all of those things, you know, how do we better think about that? The second is, you know, of course, the diversity, inclusion, and equity, right? Now bigger topic than ever, right? How do we think about that? What's the dialogue around that? And especially when it comes to workplaces. And the third thing I think is, you know, technology, right? The role of technology, both in terms of the communication technology and what does it mean for working from home. My co-tractor and colleague and co-author Wes has done great work on that, right? And you know, but there's a lot of questions to be explored. But then there's, you know, the thing about AI, right? And does it really help job growth? Does it take away from job growth? What's interaction between human and machine? So many of those topics, I think would kind of, I would love to see more exploration.
Great. Okay, how about for you, you know, Tim, you know, goals, you know, and key areas for your track that you haven't mentioned yet?
I would say just broadly that Carlos and I are very interested in pulling together anybody that has interest on these topics. I don't think that when we're talking about health, there has been as cohesive of a group that's been coming together and focusing on some of these things. So we do have like the healthcare management group at the academy, which is great, and they focus on, you know, in particular certain questions. I think there's opportunity for human capital scholars to join with many of these other individuals and discuss together. And so thinking of human capital scholars, HR scholars, more micro scholars, people more in econ that are working on these topics. There's, I think, many people that could come together and talk about this. And I think also we have the opportunity to engage with more practitioners. And so we're just hopeful that this creates a platform that allows for additional research in this area and additional impact on how we do things in the coming years.
Great, great. And Colleen, you know, goals for your area, for your track, and what do you hope to see based on the trends?
Yeah, our goals I think are really deeply aligned with Jiao's and Tim's, and we really hope to be able to kind of draw some attention to the opportunity and the importance of equity in education, and I think also we're also very excited to bring together a bunch of people who maybe don't necessarily talk to each other on a regular basis. I think, you know, some of the really excellent work in this area is done by folks in economics and sociology. There's folks in practice who are doing really excellent work. And so we hope to just bring together all of these great folks to kind of, you know, like as we do, we're experts, we love talking to experts, and we we hope to bring together experts across a variety of different areas to have a really great conversation on this topic.
Okay, okay, and I think that theme that I'm hearing of, not only, from an academic standpoint, but thinking about this from a cross-disciplinary perspective, thinking about how we connect, our academic orientation with the needs and what's going on in practice, and vice versa, and my experience with special conferences, which are my favorite, by the way, is that we have those kinds of conversations and we can walk away with clearer understanding for research impact. Some would say responsible, research. But there may be people thinking about an idea or maybe on the fence about submitting. Let me ask you as kind of a final question here. What advice do you have for people that are viewing this and maybe thinking about submitting a paper or an idea of some sort? Tim, we'll start with you on that one. What are your thoughts? What advice?
I would say you should definitely do it. We're going to put together a really fantastic conference that I think you'll love. It's in a beautiful venue in a unique place. I think that it's going to be just a wonderful conference. I will say as well as you're thinking about your conference schedule for the coming year and all potential conferences that you can go to, I've also found in the past that the special conferences provide a tremendous amount of value, and I've found that the focus of these conferences many times make it to be some of the most productive conferences, enjoyable conferences that I go to. So I hope you submit and come join us. We'd love to have you.
Great, great. And Jiao, thoughts, advice for people out there thinking about it?
Yeah, do it. So I would I think there's just so much a lot going on, like phenomena wise, and there's a lot of work to be done. So if you feel like you're not doing particular work that's related to any of the things that we or I talked about or we talked about, but please still submit, right? As long as it is related to you're doing work on SDG goals and there is human element to it. I'm sure there's all human element to it. So please submit. I would also say that, it doesn't have to be limited to the United States, right? There's kind of emerging market proposals that we would love to see. It doesn't also have to be limited to for-profit organizations. If you're doing work on nonprofits, collectives, doing work on government organizations, which are partnerships. So all of those we'd love to see. So look forward to seeing everyone in DC.
Okay, and Colleen, additional thoughts on as people are thinking about this special conference.
We're really open to all types of submissions. So anything broadly related to education and equity. So we can think about applications to technology. We can think about how education affects labor market outcomes. We can think about teachers as a labor market. We can think about how firms use university education and networks through university to hire and recruit. We can think about practices that we use inside, and I spoke a little about this a bit earlier, how the practices in our own institutions are being shaped and challenged right now. So we're really open to a broad set of papers that focus generally on this topic. So we look really forward to looking at everyone's submissions.
All right. Well, that's great. And so you heard it here, I think from, 3 of our track chairs. Others aren't able to join us, but on behalf of all the people behind the scenes, particularly at SMS, my colleagues at Johns Hopkins that are helping us, we plan to see you there and well here, because I'm already here. And so, it's going to be a great conference. If you have questions, you're not sure about some things, reach out to us. We're happy to answer those questions. As you see in the chat, the submission process is open, and I encourage you to submit your ideas, your papers. We look forward to seeing you in Washington, D.C. in June. that's all from us. It's been great to be with you, and we will see you in Washington, D.C.